Fabled and Withered are currently the two most used melee reforges, buffing the overall damage of the weapon it is applied to. However, just because they're the most popular or strongest for raw damage doesn't make them the absolute best, as the Dirty Reforge is another less popular reforge stone which still provides value. But the Dirty Reforge is a lot more build specific, which is why in today's video I've put it up to the test to see how it fares in comparison to the more common damage reforges to see if it's worth going for. But before we get to testing, if you have any further questions or comments about this video, feel free to pop into my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. With all that out of the way, let's get right into the video. Alrighty, so as you can see in today's video, we're going to be covering the Dirty Reforge. And recently I've noticed that a lot of you guys have been liking these Reforge comparisons and videos where I cover specific Reforges, so if you want me to make more of these, be sure to leave your suggestions down in the comments below. I have been reading through a lot of them recently and I've found a lot of good stuff in there as well, so if you want to keep them coming, I'm happy with that. But for now, let's get right into today's video. So starting things off here, you can see that I've got 3 weapons in my inventory. Now you may be thinking, Shredder, how is that a weapon? Well, it is actually a fishing weapon, and you can see that I have the Dirty Reforge on this. I will get back to that a little bit later in the video, but I've got my trusty liver dagger here, which I have renamed. I have a tutorial on how you can rename your weapons in the description of all of my videos. But this one does have the Dirty Reforge as well, as you can see by the strength, the bonus attack speed, and the ferocity. And then I have another liver dagger here, which is exactly the same as the one that I have, except it's got Dragon Hunter 3, but we won't be fighting any dragons in today's video. And this one is exactly the same as my livered, however this has the Withered Reforge while mine's got the Dirty Reforge. So as you guys already know, in true fashion of the videos that I make on this channel, I always go over the basic stats of what these Reforges have to offer, and I'll explain my thoughts on how these work right now. So getting things started here with the Dirty Reforge, we get plus 15 strength from the Reforge itself, which does bring our strength up to 105. We get plus 20% bonus attack speed, which is really useless on a liver dagger, as a liver dagger already has 100% attack speed anyways. And then we get plus 15 ferocity, which is also brought by the Dirty Reforge. Now to compare this to the liver dagger that I have on the right here, the Withered Reforge gives me way more strength than the Dirty one does. I get almost 200 strength when using the Withered Reforge, and that is because I'm currently Catacombs 29, and this does change depending on your Catacombs level. But as a result, you can see that we get plus 240 damage and plus 289 strength, while the livered on the left here only gives us a 240 damage, but then plus 105 strength. So already the damage looks way weaker than the one that's withered. But what the liver dagger that is withered doesn't have that the Dirty one does is that the Dirty liver dagger here actually has ferocity. And if you didn't already know, ferocity gives you a chance at double striking, and I'll explain how all of this works in a bit. So the reason why I'm actually talking about this reforge in today's video is because ferocity is actually a very underlooked stat in the game. I feel like it gets a lot of underappreciation for what it really does. Although I still wouldn't place it better than using something like a withered reforge, it's just that it is a lot stronger than what people realize, and I want to bring some attention to it. Now if you didn't already know, if you want to get the Dirty Reforge for yourself, all you have to do is come through where the blacksmith is and talk to the smithmonger here, and he will sell you this dirt bottle, which is normally 100,000 coins from this NPC. But if you're like me and you've got Seal of the Family, it'll discount it to 97,000. Now the way that ferocity behaves is fairly simple. When you have ferocity, which as you can see, I currently have a base ferocity of 2, and that is because I have eaten the century cake that does give you the ferocity perk. This actually gives me a 2% chance on every single hit that I get, whether it be a bone meringue, a bow and arrow, a sword, even a mage beam if I played left click mage inside of dungeons. It gives me a chance of having a double strike effect, which duplicates my damage and hits the mob twice. Now if I hold up my liver dagger here, which actually has a Dirty Reforge, you can see that the plus 15 ferocity is applied to the 2 that I already had, which brings it up to plus 17 ferocity, and this will give me a plus 17% chance of double striking on every hit I have, and I can scale this higher and higher the more items that I have ferocity on, which overall leads me to having higher chances of double striking. Now as you can see here, if I hold out my Shredder, which has a Dirty Reforge, and it actually grants me plus 62 ferocity, and I wear the werewolf armor that I currently have, which gives me plus 40 ferocity, and I equip a tiger pet, which actually gives me 10 ferocity, and then it doubles all the ferocity that I have currently active. I can reach a total of 220 ferocity outside of dungeons, which instead of it giving you a chance of double striking, it'll give you a guaranteed double strike on the first hit, then it will give you a guaranteed double strike on the second hit because I'm past 200 ferocity, and then for that last little 20% of ferocity that's left over, it actually gives me a 20% chance of quadruple striking, as I can already triple strike using the other 200 ferocity. So as you can see, this Dirty Reforge has a lot of potential depending on what items you pair it with, and how you really work with your Ferocity. Now, I wouldn't really recommend using the Dirty Reforge if you're not going to be using these types of builds. If you're going to use a Dirty Liver Dagger, I would recommend you get yourself at least a high level Tiger Pet. I have a level 94 here, which I am borrowing from somebody for this video. And as you can see, it gives me plus 9 Ferocity, and then my Merciless Swipe perks will give me plus 94% Ferocity. And if I were to use this pet alone and hold out my Liver Dagger, you can see that I do get 51 Ferocity, which is just over a 50% chance of being able to double strike on every hit, which by default is pretty solid. I don't have to change my armor, I don't have to change any talismans, I don't have to change anything else other than just a Reforge and the pet that I use. So if that's something that you really like, you can always try this out, as a Tiger Pet is not even a bad pet at all, and overall is a pretty solid option. Now, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious, I won't be going into too much detail on what the maximum amount of ferocities possible is, but I did do some calculations off camera, and if you're really interested on how I got these numbers, then feel free to ask me in the comments section and I'll explain it to you all there. But with a very expensive coin setup, it's over 1 billion coins, including Chimera 5, a Minos Relic on a Tiger Pet, and many other things, it is possible to get a total ferocity of 446.16. Now that is completely absurd. You basically get a guaranteed chance of quintuple striking on every hit, and then you have a 46% chance of sextuple striking on your single hit. And while that sounds like it's completely overpowered, it is ridiculously expensive. Nobody's realistically going to have this, and I feel like your damage would be too weak either way. So we're just going to stick with the basic setup here using a Shredder, and I'll also be comparing it to a Liver Dagger. Using the full Werewolf set, which is 5-starred, and I will be testing this inside of dungeons. And also this Tiger Pet that I have in my pets menu. But with all that information out of the way, I'm sure all of you guys want to see what the damage numbers look like. So let's hop into a floor 6 run really quickly here, and I'll show you guys what the damage looks like in there. Alrighty, so hopping into the dungeon now. This is right at the beginning with no blessings and nothing whatsoever. Just to show you guys what the gear that I'll be using for this is going to be the Berserker class, and it's just the one that uses melee damage. The enchants on the weapon that I'll be using will be these ones up on the screen, and the other one just doesn't have Dragon Hunter 3 on it. I'll be using 3/4 Necron. The Tarantula helmet will be 5-starred, while the chestplate, leggings, and boots are all 4-starred. And I have the Ancient Reforge on all 4 of these pieces. My accessories, as per usual, are going to be 6 legendaries, 12 epics, 21 rares, 10 uncommons, 11 commons, all of them shaded, or either forceful as well. And I'm currently Combat 42, Foraging 31, Catacombs 29, and Berserker 22. I'll also be taking this Withered Skeleton pet with me on my journey. It is currently level 100, and I'll be using that level 94 Tiger Pet that I also showed in the main hub. So with all that being said, let's get straight into the damage tests right over here. So if I just go ahead and get some hits on these Crypticals, we're doing about 4 to 7 million damage per hit. That's about 4 million damage right there, about 3.9 million or 4 million as well. 3.9 million, 3.9 million. It stays relatively the same on all of those hits. And this is without Ferocity, about 7.8 million on that one. 3.9 million on that one. So overall the damage is pretty decent. This is without a Ferocity build, and we're pulling around 4 million damage a hit on average and 7 million damage on the other mobs. Now swapping over to the Ferocity build now, I've got the Tiger Pet equipped, the full Werewolf armor, and also the Dirty Liver Dagger. If I show you guys how much Ferocity I'm pulling, I'm getting 182 right now, and when I was showcasing my Ferocity in the hub with the Shredder, I was getting 220, and now I'm getting almost 260 Ferocity. But I won't be using the Shredder as the weapon, as this doesn't have any damage in chance. I will be using the Liver Dagger as the main weapon and then trying to sword swap to the Shredder. So coming up on some zombies over here, we're doing about 17 million damage a shot. We did a double strike on that one, which was about 20,000 damage per hit. We do about 800,000 on that Skeleton Master. About 800,000 on the Skeleton, 800,000 on the Skeleton again, and then 500,000 on a regular zombie. So as you can see, the damage is significantly weaker, but that's because we're going for a Ferocity build and not a damage build. If the Ferocity did actually proc on those attacks, then we would have been able to hit them a guaranteed 3 times every single time. And to showcase how this works, if I hold out my Shredder to start things off, I go ahead and sword swap onto the zombie here. We do 1 and 2 hits straight after that, being able to take him out even though we don't one-shot. And then being able to do the same thing on this Fel right here. We're able to hit it once, it swipes the second time, and on that zombie as well, we were able to one-shot that one there. So as you can see, Ferocity isn't super overwhelming in these parts of the dungeons. I do still manage to one-shot most of these mobs even with such reduced damage. And in situations like this where you're going to be one-shotting pretty much every mob, this is a floor 6 run and my gear is strong enough to do that, then I wouldn't really recommend going with a Ferocity build because as you can see, it's relatively useless. Now because those tests that I showed you guys were relatively underwhelming, as I do end up one-shotting most of the mobs and it really wasn't that big of a showcase of Ferocity, I've actually come to this room here which luckily for us, has a superior Lost Adventurer in this cage here. Now I'm going to let it out and show you guys how I can do some damage with the Ferocity build, which I am currently running. So if I go ahead, flick the lever, go into the fight, and then get some shots on this Lost Adventurer here, you can hear all those double swipes there, and it is actually hitting him multiple times here. And then we're able to absolutely destroy through him, shred his HP really quickly, and overall do a good job of taking out mini bosses. However, the non-Ferocity build is also really good at taking mini bosses as well. I've got an Angry Archaeologist just chilling up over here. Now if I show you guys how much damage I'm actually able to do to this thing with my Wither Skeleton, we're still able to absolutely melt through its HP. Now granted, this one is a lot stronger than the superior Lost Adventurer, as the defense is higher and it also has that healing ability where it shoots all those potions, but regardless, we were still able to melt through that Angry Archaeologist's health. So realistically speaking, Ferocity is kinda overkill, I wanna say, and not as useful in my opinion, as you could just run a normal damage build like the one that I'm using, where you're much better off with the Withered Reforge over the Dirty Reforge. So as you guys saw from those damage tests, Ferocity is pretty interesting, or the Dirty Reforge to be more specific, as when you go with a very Ferocity focused build using the Dirty Reforge as Shredder, full Werewolf, and you really pair all those things together, you can get some really nice double and triple swipes out of it, and your DPS overall shoots up incredibly. However, the damage is cut by a drastic amount, where it goes from around 4 million damage a hit as a Berserker to around 700 to 800,000 damage a hit. Now this is comparable to using just a normal build. If you are able to get 3 procs off and a chance at a 4th hit as well, then you are able to deal more damage than what you'd normally be able to do without Ferocity, although it's not always consistent and it is more of a DPS thing instead of a single hit damage. Now for this weapon specifically being the Liver Dagger here, because it already comes with plus 100% attack speed, I don't really see the need of going for Ferocity at all. Because the Liver Dagger already has a very high DPS rate with the 100% attack speed, it makes it even stronger to have a fully damage focused build, as you're able to output a ridiculous amount of damage on mobs that you can't one-shot. And I was able to showcase this using my regular Livid on that Angry Archaeologist, but we were still able to melt through its health regardless of it healing and regardless of its increased defense. Now, like I mentioned before, if you're just gonna add Dirty to your sword because you don't really need that extra damage and you would prefer having around 17 Ferocity or a little bit higher chance of it, then go for it. It's not a bad shout. The Withered Reforge is still significantly better because you get a crazy amount of strength and you are able to do a lot more than you were able to with the Dirty Reforge. But if you're willing to make that compromise because you want to have the chance of double striking, go for it. It's not a bad idea, although I personally wouldn't recommend it. And in my opinion, it seems overall relatively unnecessary, but it shouldn't stop you from using the Reforge if you like it personally. Now, there is actually one instance that I can think of off the top of my head, which is really useful for this Dirty Reforge, and that's actually in floor 4 runs when taking out Thorn. If you do run a really heavy focused Ferocity build, or you just have one so you can swap to it once you're in the boss fight, you can actually have a chance of killing Thorn in only 2 hits if you're able to get a double swipe on your first shot and then a double swipe on your second shot. And if your Ferocity is high enough, you're able to do it in 1 shot by being able to get a quadruple strike with 1 single arrow hit. But you are going to need some more expensive gear for that, and it's a lot harder to achieve, so I would stick to just having to double shot him. So being able to kill him in 2 hits is definitely a lot more reliable than just 1. But other than that, the Dirty Reforge and all of the other Ferocity boosting items, I didn't even include some of the ones that actually exist, like the Vicious Enchant, and the Valkyrie actually has the highest base Ferocity on any weapon in the game. It is a decent option if you already do a lot of damage and you just want to have double strike chances, or you're just a person who's a fan of having a lot of DPS and favors DPS over singular burst damage. But if I were the one who were to have a say in whether you go with Dirty or not, I would personally recommend you stick with Withered or even Fabled, as you're going to be having much higher damage numbers overall, and you can just benefit off of attack speed if you really want DPS. But with all of that being said, hopefully you all did enjoy this video or find it informative in some way. If you did, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel, as I make Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. And also, if you've got any further questions, comments, or suggestions about anything that I've said in today's video, be sure to visit me over on my Twitch streams. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. But with all that being said, hope you all did enjoy this video, and as always, take care and peace. Oh, I can't flick it. Ooh, I'm fiddling with the lever, guys. I'm fiddling with the lever.